What's happening everyone, my name is Alex and welcome back. So Poco is back with another budget-friendly device. The one that we have today is called the M4 Pro and this is a phone that's powered by the MediaTek Dimensity 810. In my case I have the version that has 6 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of internal storage. The phone can also take an SD card, and for those of you that like benchmark scores, well, this device gets an Antutu benchmark score of about 300,000. So you already know that you are not looking at a slow phone by any means. Now, I've also done a camera comparison between this phone and the iPhone 13. I have the iPhone 13 right here. And for those of you that want to see the camera comparison and don't really care about anything else, you can find it here in this video. So you can skip right to that camera comparison. But today we are also going to do a bit of a review of this device. So on the front here we have a 6.6 inches IPS panel that has a 1080p resolution, and we also get a 90 Hz refresh rate. Not to mention the screen here is covered by Gorilla Glass 3, so it shouldn't get scratched that easily. This screen also has a maximum brightness of 450 nits, so if you're gonna be using the phone indoors, the screen looks great, the colors are nice and vibrant, the viewing angles are really good, and the brightness is really good for indoors. Outdoors, depending where you are, I mean, if you're in direct sunlight, it's gonna be a bit difficult seeing this screen. But for budget-friendly phones, this is fairly normal. The phone's body is mostly made out of plastic. I mean, we have plastic on the back here, we have plastic on the sides. We also have this dual-tone back, if I may say. We've seen this in the past for other Poco devices. On the back there we have the cameras. So on the left hand side here we have the slot for the SIM card. This device can take a SIM card and an SD card at the same time, or two SIM cards at the same time. At the top here we have the second speaker, so we get one speaker at the top and one speaker at the bottom, so dual speakers. Not to mention the speakers sound quite good for a budget friendly device, and I'm also going to show you a quick example so you can hear how those speakers sound. Next to that speaker at the top we have another hole that's probably a hole for a microphone, and we have an IR blaster, so you could use this phone as a remote control for your TV, just to give you an example. On the right hand side of the device we have the volume buttons and the power button. The power button also has a built-in fingerprint scanner, so unlocking the phone is super simple. You just touch that fingerprint scanner. It takes, I don't know, half a second for the screen to unlock once you touch it. So it is a very quick fingerprint scanner, mostly taking into consideration the price of the phone, because I've seen other more expensive phones, Samsung Galaxy S21, that takes a while to unlock the screen when you touch the scanner. At the top here, guess what? We get a 3.5mm audio jack, so you can plug in some headphones into this device, which is quite exciting these days. We have the USB-C port and the second set of speakers that I mentioned earlier. And next I want to show you a quick example just so you can hear how those speakers sound basically. The phone weighs 195 grams, and inside it we have a 5000 mAh battery, so on one charge you can easily get about 10 hours of screen on time. So if you want a phone that you don't have to charge daily, this is definitely one that you're not gonna have to charge daily. Inside the box you're also gonna find a 33 watt fast charger. So the phone supports 33 watt fast charging. So charging this phone from 0 to 100 is done in about an hour and 5 minutes, something like that. So very quick to charge for a budget phone. Take my iPhone 13 for example. This one takes much longer to charge, even though it has a battery much smaller than this one. So pretty impressive battery specs on this particular device, the M4 Pro. The phone also has an NFC chip inside it, and that means that you can make payments using Google Pay. So all you have to do is touch the terminal with your phone, if you have Google Pay set up of course, and you can make payments with the phone. I've tried the GPS unit inside it. It takes a second or two to find your location, and once your location is found it doesn't seem to lose it. And the phone also supports 5G connectivity. Unfortunately, my new carrier does not support 5G connectivity, so I was not able to use the phone on the 5G network. As for sensors, well, we do have plenty of sensors for a budget-friendly device. The phone runs MIUI 12.5, which is based on Android 11, and as we've seen with many budget-friendly devices from Xiaomi, this performs really well, even though it doesn't have the craziest specs out there. So of course, we are not going to be comparing this to a flagship, but for a budget-friendly device, I think it performs really well. So whenever you're closing apps, when you're opening apps, when you're switching in between apps, even multitasking works good, but we do have that 6 gigs of RAM, so multitasking was to be expected to work relatively good. You can even play certain games on it. Of course, the phone will get a bit warm when you play games for a longer period of time, but I was even able to play games like Call of Duty and PUBG. For PUBG, it works okay if you lower the graphics settings. At the maximum graphics settings, it doesn't do that amazing, but overall for a budget-friendly phone, I have to say that it does perform quite good. And we are moving on to our camera comparison between the Poco M4 Pro and of course the iPhone 13, and we are starting with some portrait mode pictures. So looking at those portrait mode pictures, the edge detection is really good on both devices, so I can't really say that the iPhone did better or the Poco M4 Pro did better for the edge detection. For colors, well, I kind of like the colors that we get from the iPhone. They do look a bit more vibrant, even though I kind of feel that the Poco M4 Pro did retain the original colors a bit better, mostly for our faces. But overall, I still prefer the portrait mode pictures that I took with the iPhone 13. Now, keep in mind that the price of an iPhone 13 is much higher than the price that we get on this Poco M4 Pro. So you can buy about 5 of these for the price of an iPhone 13. Next, we are moving on to some 5x zoom pictures. Keep in mind that neither device has a telephoto lens, so they're just doing digital zoom for those 5x zoom pictures. Here I have to say that the Poco M4 Pro does better in every single picture than the iPhone 13. So every single picture that I took with the Poco is sharper than the picture that I took with the iPhone 13. So for zoom pictures, I'm gonna say that the Poco M4 Pro does better. Moving on to some ultra-wide pictures, well, the first thing you're gonna notice here is the fact that the pictures taken by the iPhone 13 are a bit wider, so you can see a bit more in those pictures taken by the iPhone 13. I've also noticed that the dynamic range in most of those pictures taken by the iPhone 13 is better than the dynamic range that we get in the pictures taken by the Poco M4 Pro. As for colors, I feel that the iPhone has the warmer tones where the Poco is using somewhat cooler tones. So I think it comes down to your personal preference if you prefer cooler tones or warmer tones. But once again, for a device this affordable, I don't think that the Poco M4 Pro does bad at all. Alright, and next we're gonna move on and check out some pictures that I took with the main cameras, and of course all the pictures taken with the main cameras are taken on auto mode and about a second apart from each other, I'm gonna say. So overall, after looking at all those daytime pictures taken with the main camera, I can't really say that the Poco M4 Pro does bad. I mean, in some pictures the iPhone does better, in a couple of pictures the M4 Pro does better, but overall it will come down to your personal preference and your style of pictures. But once again, for the price of the device, you can't really go wrong with these 4 daytime pictures. Next, we're gonna move on and check out some pictures that I took at night. So for the night mode is only available if you're using the main camera on the Poco M4 Pro. So of course with the iPhone 13 you get a night mode even with the ultra wide camera. So I'm only gonna show you pictures that I took at night with the night mode and the main camera. Here, of course, the iPhone 13 does seem to do better in most pictures, mostly because those pictures taken by the iPhone are a bit sharper than the ones that we take with the Poco M4 Pro. Now, funny enough, if you look at the lights around those pictures, so lights in buildings, lights on the street, the Poco M4 Pro handles all those lights way better than the iPhone 13. I was quite surprised to see that, in fact. So once again, for a budget-friendly device that has a night mode, I feel that the Poco M4 Pro does pretty well for its price and of course nighttime pictures. Next, we're gonna move on and check out some sample recordings, some daytime and nighttime sample recordings that I filmed with the Poco M4 Pro and of course the iPhone 13. So the maximum recording resolution for the Poco M4 Pro with the main camera is 1080p at 60 frames per second. However, if you do want image stabilization, you're gonna have to lower that resolution to 1080p at 30 frames per second. So all the recordings that I've done, I've switched the resolution from the iPhone to 1080p at 30 frames per second as well. So I'll let you guys watch those sample recordings and I will be right back. Alright, we have a quick video test between the Poco M4 Pro and of course the iPhone 13. So the maximum recording resolution for the Poco M4 Pro is 1080p at 60 frames per second. However, if you do want image stabilization, you're gonna have to lower the resolution to 1080p at 30 frames per second. Of course, with the iPhone 13, you could record at much higher resolutions. So we're currently doing 1080p at 30 frames per second. We're gonna stop here. I'm gonna pan left slowly. So basically following that scooter. And back right. And we're gonna walk this way, so towards the beach basically. This way you can see how that image stabilization does when walking a bit quicker. So yeah, 1080p at 30 frames per second between the Poco M4 Pro and the iPhone 13. Okay, and we are moving on to another quick recording done with the ultra-wide cameras on the back of the iPhone 13 and of course the Poco M4 Pro. So the maximum recording resolution for the ultra-wide camera is 1080p at 30 frames per second for the Poco M4 Pro, but at least we do get image stabilization at this resolution. Of course, with the iPhone 13 you could record at much higher resolutions. So we're gonna walk this way, so the same way we're coming from, and I'm gonna turn right somewhere around here and we'll walk straight. I'm gonna try to walk as quick as I can so you can see how that image stabilization does if you're recording with the ultra-wide cameras. So yeah, ultra-wide camera on the Poco M4 Pro and of course the iPhone 13. Okay, so for our next recording, I'm using the front-facing cameras on the Poco M4 Pro and of course on the iPhone 13. The maximum recording resolution with the front-facing camera on the Poco M4 Pro is 1080p at 30 frames per second, but at least we do get image stabilization at that resolution. Of course, with the iPhone 13, we can record at higher resolutions. So I'm gonna start walking a bit faster just so you can see how that stabilization looks like. It's also a bit windy, so you're probably gonna hear some wind aside from my voice. So yeah, this is how recording down with the front-facing cameras on these two devices would look like. Alright, we have a quick video recording in low light between the Poco M4 Pro and of course the iPhone 13. For this recording I'm doing 1080p at 30 frames per second with both devices, and of course at this resolution both devices support image stabilization. So we're gonna walk this way. We have some street lights around here, so we should see better. I'm gonna stop here for a bit. I guess we're gonna pan left so it gets a bit darker around here. Overall, taking in consideration how affordable this Poco device is and what I'm seeing on the screens here, the video quality isn't bad. But again, I'm gonna have to see how this footage actually looks on the computer. So yeah, this is how recording done at night with the Poco M4 Pro and of course the iPhone 13 would look like if you're using the main camera, of course, and recording in 1080p at 30 frames per second. And of course, as you'd expected, the iPhone 13 did better. The videos from the iPhone are sharper, but that is kind of known that iPhones do get the best video quality. But what I was trying to show you is that even a budget-friendly device like the Poco M4 Pro can do decent enough for video recordings. But of course, if we would be to compare this with the iPhone will always do better. Moving on to some selfies, well, for daytime selfies the Poco M4 Pro doesn't do too bad, but I still feel that the iPhone does have the edge for those daytime selfies. As for nighttime selfies, of course the iPhone will do better, mostly because it has a night mode for those selfies. So there you have it, this is the Poco M4 Pro, the latest budget-friendly device from Xiaomi. Definitely leave a comment down below and let me know your thoughts about the cameras on the back of this device. Are they good enough for a budget phone? Should they be better? Are you happy with the quality? So definitely leave a comment down below and let us know. Alright guys, hopefully you liked this video. If you did like it, don't forget to press that like button and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.